Hello, everybody! Welcome to Kevin Plays Disc Golf. Today we have a playthrough and course review from Moody Park in Claremont, New Hampshire. My name is Kevin, and I play disc golf. Filming on course for this video was done on September 22nd, 2024. Both UDisc and Google Maps will get you to the entrance of Moody Park, and using one of these navigation tools is my recommendation, as there is the potential to get to the park entrance on Maple Avenue from one of several different directions, depending on exactly where you're coming from. My parking recommendation would be to park in the small parking lot on the left just after the playground. Though the main part of the park is a little further up the road, there aren't any good places to park that are any closer to the start of the course. To get to the start kiosk, first tee, and practice basket, continue walking up the main access road to the park. They'll be about 500 feet from the gate on the right adjacent to the road. This is a multi-use facility, and the day that I played, there were many people picnicking, biking, and walking the trails. The disc golf course is mostly separate from the other activities, but it's a good idea to make sure the path is clear before you throw. It had been relatively dry for a couple of weeks prior to playing, and I would expect that there are several places where the gorges and marsh areas are much wetter in the spring or if it has recently rained than it was when I played. The biggest issue is that if it is much wetter than it was when I played, you do not want to go into the swamp on the left on hole 7 or surrounding most of hole 8. It may also make the walk up and down the hills treacherous in several places. If it is wet, you're going to want to play wearing a good pair of hiking boots rather than sneakers. I played the main 18-hole layout named Pine Hill Loop. What UDisc lists as hole 19 and 20 are temporary and were not set up at the time that I played. There are short tees listed, but they are very short. What I played is the primary course option. Alcohol is not allowed in the park. Trash is carry in, carry out. However, there are some trash cans throughout the park, but most of them are near the primary picnic area. I do not believe there are any trash cans between the tee of hole 4 and the tee of hole 12. I also do not believe there are any trash cans between the tee of 12 and the end of the course. At the time that I played, there was a porta potty in the parking lot at the course entrance, and though there were other bathrooms in more permanent buildings by hole 4 and the basket of 18, they did not appear to be actively being used. Dogs are allowed in the park as long as you clean up after them. Something else to note is that I played this course the day after the new dynamic disc baskets were installed, and there was construction ongoing while I was playing, most notably around the basket area of hole 9. I do mention through the video the locations where the baskets may not be in their final locations. If you know if or how far the basket on hole 2 moved, please post it in the comments below. I'll have my overall review of the course at the end of the video. Be sure to post your comments as to your thoughts of what looks like fun and where you think the problem areas are. Let's take a look at the starting kiosk and where to go from there.
All right, here we are at Moody Park Disc Golf Course. It is pretty easy to get here. There's a road and you can see this little kiosk sign here. It's nice that they have lost disc return. And to get from here to the first tee, all we have to do is turn around and it is right here in front of us. Hole 1 is a 224-foot par 3, straight ahead, basket dead straight. There's OB behind, so you don't want to go too long, but you have a lot of room around there and a couple different options as to how to get here. One other thing I will point out is that just to the right of the tee, there is a practice basket if you'd like a little practice before you start your round. So, as it turns out, I'm playing on September 22nd, 2024. Yesterday, all the baskets here were replaced with these dynamic discs baskets. So, being white, they're easy to see here. So that's kind of neat. So I did take my 3 here. One thing that's nice, they do have little signs above directing where the next tee is. And in this case, you get from the hole 1 to T2. It is just a quick walk behind the basket and slightly to the left. And here we are. Hole 2 is a 153-foot par 3. This is an island green over a gully, so there is OB short and right marked out by yellow rope. The yellow rope is a good ways down the hill here. There is a drop zone to the right. When you're back inbounds, I'll go take a shot of that when we're up at the green. It is short, it is a hanging basket, but again, the challenge is just don't go too long and make sure you get on the island green. Here we are at the drop zone for hole 2. Something else I was just informed of is that there are a few of these baskets that are temporary hanging baskets, so they're going to change, but the locations are going to be more or less where they are, just in the ground instead of hanging. Here we are standing next to the basket at 2, looking back to the tee. So there's 2, there is the basket. I took my 4 after the OB shot. If we then spin around, so with our back to the tee, if we go a little bit to the left here and follow this path, and again, you can see there's rope marks here for out of bounds long. It's nice that they have these yellow ropes everywhere to define exactly where out of bounds is. And right in front of us is the tee for hole 3. Hole 3 is a 241-foot par 3, straight, very heavily guarded by trees. The big issue here is there is out of bounds to the right. Pretty much as soon as you start going down the slope to the right here, there is an OB marker there, and there is a lot of chance for it to kick right here. There's only a very narrow straight gap to get to the hole. I'll point out exactly where it is, where the basket is, but you can see it from the tee, but getting there is another story entirely. All right, so somehow I managed to not hit any trees on this and had a basically drop in for 3 here. So from the 3 basket, you can look up and there's a little sign to 4 pointing across the way here. So we can follow along the little path next to the road. And let's see. This path looks well worn. There we go. And right up here, we can see the tee for hole 4. All right, hole 4 is a 252-foot par 3. There is a mando. You have to go right of the big tree, and to the left of that tree, there is a net. There's also OB left beyond the net and long. So this is, I think, more precision layup. Just kind of take what the course gives you, then try and go for it and get it close for a birdie on this one. Another reminder here on hole 4, just remember, trees do not care about your feelings. They will bite you and come up and grab you. So again, I ended up short and left of where we're standing, so I'm gonna be lucky to get 4 from here. All right, so we took our 4 on hole 4, and hole 5, if you see the sign, is just to your right, sort of downhill. Couple things to note is that is the basket for hole 10, and the hole for, or the tee for hole 11 is right behind us. So we just want to make sure that we're actually going the right way here, so we can grab our disc out of the basket and take a little walk over here. And just down this path a little bit, we have the tee for hole 5. Hole 5 is a 335-foot par 4. It's pretty much dead straight in this direction. If you look between the sort of 2 trees on the left a little bit further in the distance, that is the direction that the basket is. It does open up quite a bit after these first few guardian trees, but again, the whole key here is avoiding trees and somehow getting it up there where you're going to have a decent second shot. Here we are at the first crest of the hill looking back at the tee. There are the two guardian trees. Here's the tree on the right, which I ping-ponged among these three trees, and I'm in the middle there. But if we turn around, there's the short tee right in front of us and the basket through the woods up there. So once you get to the short tee, you're generally going to be fine. All right, so after playing ping pong off the trees here a couple times, I ended up with a 5. But with our back to the basket, to get to the next hole, if we take a look, we can grab our disc out of the basket. And then if we turn to the left, you'll see there's an arrow for hole 6. And then the tee pad for hole 6 is directly in front of us, right there. Hole 6 is a 172-foot par 3, straight downhill. I'm a little bit to the left of the tee because there is no clear shot of the basket from the tee, but we're maybe 5 feet to the left of it. This is an island green, so there's OB short, OB left, OB right. There's actually no out of bounds long, but with all the trees here, it's real tough to get through. There is a drop zone to the right down in the gully, which I will show you once we get down there. So here at the bottom of the hill, you can see some of the out of bounds line. Just above that, we have the basket, kind of a neat basket idea, a little tough to get to, but that's okay. And over here we have the drop zone, which I'm going to be playing from because I was playing ping pong off the trees and it did not work very well. Here we have the hole 6 basket. I'm going up the set of steps on the left side. I had basically a drop in for 4 after my OB shot. Grab our disc out of the basket, go down these stairs on the right side. And then if we look behind us, we have the sign for hole 7T, which is right back past the drop zone. So there's the drop zone for 6. Up this little set of stairs here. And then right in front of us is the tee box for 7. Just something to note here. The end is not a step, so you don't want to go too far off the end there. They don't want you using those logs in the front for stairs. Just use the pathway to the left. Hole 7 is a 229-foot par 3. There is OB all along the left side. There's also OB long. The basket is very much on the side of a hill, so this is going to be one that's real tough to get close. I think the whole key here is, again, just keep it in bounds and see what you end up with and take your 3 and be happy. Here we are on the bridge that crosses the little creek. As you can see, there actually is water in it, and that's where I ended up after my tee shot. Just to the right of this is the drop zone for out of bounds. And from here, drop zone is still not an easy shot. Again, here it's significantly uphill to the basket, and there's still the threat of OB right and long. So again, just getting it up there and close is the name of the game here. Here we are at the basket of 7, looking back at the tee, and you can see there's all these layers of height. Again, it's probably a good 20 vertical feet down there. And then you can see it steeply goes downhill there. And behind the basket, it's still steeply downhill towards out of bounds. So just getting it close, sort of a flop shot is what I did. Took my 4 and was happy with it. To get to hole 8, there's another little yellow sign there. So we continue up the hill from the basket. And right up here, we have the tee for hole 9. Hole 8 is a 317-foot par 4, steeply downhill, lots of trees, out of bounds right, long, and far left, but it's difficult to get to the far left piece here. The big out of bounds threat is kicking off a tree and having it go to the right down the gully. As far as where your tee shot goes, There is a sign, a safety marker that when you're down there, you should flip from green to red. I'll get a video from up there to show you exactly where we're going, but if you can get left of that, you can see a little gap behind. That's where you're going to end up wanting to go. It is short, par 4 at only 317 feet. This is, if you have a drive that somehow misses all the trees and gets down that hill, this is a legitimate potential for an eagle on this one. Here we are looking back at the tee, and we're standing right next to the tree with the paddle on it. So again, we want to flip this to red when we go down to putt. And we can see the orange arrow. We can't actually see the basket from here, but if we move a little bit to the left, we can see the basket hiding behind the tree, kind of right in the middle of that island. There is lots of OB all over the place down there, so again, very difficult second shot, just to hope you get it in play, and if you can keep it in play, you'll be good. All right, here we are at the basket of hole 8. Looking back up, you can see how steeply downhill it is. There is out of bounds all the way around, sort of the outside edge here. Top of that little wood staked wall, that's all out of bounds. And then if we continue sort of at the bottom of the hill, out of bounds. The thing is with the tree kicks is that if it goes left, now you can probably find a disc, but if it goes left out in that stuff in the spring, it is probably gone. And maybe even if it's short right, out of bounds, it's gone. So I would say this hole has a very high danger of losing discs. But we ended up with a 4, so had a lucky bounce off the tree on the second shot. Grab our disc out of the basket. We can go right back up the hill, back to where we came from. And again, this is probably a good 30 vertical feet up and down to get here. Long way up and down. The camera shot isn't going to do it justice. Remember to flip your marker once you are clear, and then we can continue up that path to hole 10. All right, so continuing on our journey to hole 9, follow the signs, go back up the hill parallel to 8, going in the opposite direction. This is a long way up and long distance between holes, so this may end up being a time-lapse video up this path, as there's really only one good way to go from here. Again, this really is steeply uphill, so take your time. The footing's not great, and I'm guessing if it's wet, it's near impossible to get up. At the top of the hill, we have a sign to go left for hole 9. So we branch off the main path, go down the smaller path. Another sign for hole 9, continuing along the smaller path. Still going, more signs for hole 9. And continuing on this small path. And finally, we have gotten to the crest of the hill and the tee box for hole 9. Play at your own risk and take a break before going any further after that hike. Hole 9 is a 204-foot par 3. Straight ahead of us, it's easy to see the basket. The tough part is, again, you're going over a huge ravine. The only out of bounds is if somehow you end up way left and end up on the island green for 6, that's out of bounds. But otherwise, this is kind of wide open. So the whole key here is just miss the trees and hope you can get it up onto that little island. I have been told that this hole is still under construction, so the green will probably look better than it does now when you come and play this. As I know, I was actually speaking with the course maintenance person earlier today that was actively working on the course. Again, the whole key here is just get it as far up the hill as you possibly can and hope it doesn't roll back down the hill. if you make it into the OB zone, there is a drop zone here, and we are looking straight up at the basket. I had a beautiful tee shot that bounced off that tree and bounced straight back over here. So let's see if we can see. Yeah, there we go. You can see it from there. It's not out of bounds, but it is definitely not nearly as good as it would have been if it had missed the tree. All right, so we took a 4 on hole 9. So from here we can take the steep walk uphill, grab the disc out of the basket. So from the basket of hole 10, again, this is still a little bit under construction, so the path to get up there is probably going to change, but we end up needing to go basically straight up this hill, and there's no good way to do it. But once we get up here, here's a much more defined path to follow. And again, that section will probably be much better in the next couple of weeks or so. So if you're watching this in spring of 2025, it's probably much better now. And here's some of the dirt from the excavation. Walk a little bit further up here. And here you have this little wall, which I didn't have in the video, but you may have seen on hole 3. Okay. Hole 10 is a 185-foot par 3, nicknamed Take a Break after the long walk hike up and down of the sections 6 through 9 holes. You can see the basket through the trees on the left here. The play is to go from right to left. So again, with 185 feet, it's not that long. There is OB left, there is OB right, and OB long. So again, placement is more important than distance on this one. All right, so I ended up kicking off a tree and going to the right side, and I ended up with about as lucky of a kick as you could hope for on this, because if we look at exactly where my disc is, that is the out of bounds rope, and you can see because there is just a teeny sliver of it that's in bounds, that counts as in bounds. So I am here in 1, taking my second shot here for 2. It'd be a long shot for birdie, but not. I've made longer putts recently, so we'll see what happens. Well, I definitely wish I had recorded that one. That one I said was a long shot for 2. I actually nailed that, about 75 feet away, dead center, middle of the chains. Really couldn't have had a better shot than that. So very happy with that one. Yep. So going from 10 to 11, we can turn to the right. There's our sign for the tee for 11. And if we continue along here, we can see the old wire spool. And here is out of bounds, not just the out of bounds line for here, but also the out of bounds line for hole 4. And here's the tee pad right here. Hole 11 is a 200-foot par 3. There is out of bounds around the second ravine. There's also a road up there that is out of bounds. But at 200 feet, none of those should really come into play. There's a backstop before it gets to the road, so as long as you're not way too high and don't sky the basket too much, this should be a good birdie opportunity, if not par at a minimum. All right, so here's the ravine. It is much deeper than I thought it was. And we can see the out of bounds line, and we can see my disc at the bottom of the ravine. I think that actually landed up there and sort of scooched backwards down the slope. The island green here is much smaller than I believed it to be from the tee. There's out of bounds all over the place. There's out of bounds to the right, basically past where we're looking as well. And I did not realize how steeply it goes from the basket back down to the ravine. So I'm on the opposite side of the line. I will take my out of bounds shot from here, and we'll see how we end up. All right, after we take our 4, or after going OB, to get to the tee of 12, we can follow past this fence. So this fence may be in bounds, or maybe a play to bounce off that to get where we're going. And then here we are at the tee for hole 12. Hole 12 is a 247-foot par 3, dead straight ahead. The basket is tucked behind the trees, but if you go through the gap on the right and then move it right to left, you should be right there. There is OB right, and the ravine ahead of us is out of bounds, but that ravine only takes about 50 feet to clear, so should not be a problem. So as a right-hand, forehand player, I went off the tee, had a nice drive, missed everything, and then it skipped left. So I am right here. It's not quite as far as I would like it, but I'm still outside, just outside of circle 1. So I have a makeable putt for birdie from here. And as you can see, though there are trees here, they're not that dense. So if you don't hit anything, then you can make it to the basket. There is OB long and OB right that does come into play a little bit if you go too long, but yeah, as long as you keep it short and left of the basket, you're good. Ended up with a 3 here, so with our back to the tee at the basket for 12, we can go forward. There's the ravine in the back, and we want to take a 90-degree left-hand turn going out to the road. And as we walk up here a little further, follow this path. You can see a sign up on the tree that says 13 cross to sign caution. So again, just be careful that you don't get run over here when you're crossing the road. And walk up the road here a little bit. As we continue on, there is a bright green and yellow sign on the tree that says 213. And if we walk in that little path, at least this one is flat, not like the walk from 8 to 9 that was not just long, but straight uphill as well. Well, we have a little bridge that we have to go over. And just as I say, the walk is flat. It turns uphill, though not nearly as steep as it was before. And there we have the tee for hole 13. Hole 3 is a 317-foot par 3, very open, gradually uphill. I mean, the basket is probably about 15 feet above ground level at the tee, and it is an elevated basket, so again, it's going to play longer than 317, but with it being open, you can kind of let one fly here and should be okay. There is no OB here, but just get something in play and you're going to have a reasonable shot at 3. Here we are with our back to the tee at the 13 basket. Yes, it is an elevated basket. The basket itself is probably about 6.5 feet off the ground. And from here to get to hole 14, if we take a look to our left, we'll see the 14 sign, and we can follow the little path here. Yeah, my guess is that it's quite marshy here in the springtime, hence these pallets to walk on. Now it's dry enough where it's not an issue, but yeah, from what I've seen of this course, it's probably going to be very wet if you play in the spring, and a lot of mud. Make sure you're wearing good boots if you plan on coming here. And here we are at the tee for hole 14. Hole 14 is a 357-foot par 3, downhill the whole way. Again, this is basically the opposite of hole 13, just downhill instead of uphill. Got a good clean fairway, can see the basket from here. There are only really 2 trees to miss as long as you keep it in the fairway, so even though it's long, 3 is still a good possibility here. So after a good tee shot that went a little into the woods, I went further in the woods on my second shot, ended up with a 4 here at 14. So now back to the tee, if we continue straight past the basket, follow this little trail here, and we can come right around the corner, and we have the tee pad for 15 right in front of us. Hole 15 is a 370-foot par 4, significantly uphill, goes right to left. It does look like if you get a long way up there, you're fine. The fairway is fairly narrow, and it looks like the rough is rough. So I think the key here is just keep it in the fairway and you'll have a good shot for a 4, if not a 3 from here. All right, here we are in the landing zone looking back at the tee. We're right next to the second tree that you can see from the tee box. And as you can see, it opens up quite a bit to the left. And we have the hole straight ahead of us. If you are pushing the right side of the fairway, that's where you want to be, and you're going to have the best second shot in. I'm in the rough just on the other side of the tree, so I'm not going to have a great second shot, but I'll at least have a shot for 4 from there. After a couple shots in the woods, I ended up with a 5 here. So again, with our back to the tee, going to the basket, if we just continue straight on to get to the hole, to get to the tee for 16, we come here and there's some nice signage here. We can take a left to go to 16, or if we continue straight, we can go on to hole 18 if we're getting tired and want to skip a couple, but we want to keep playing. So we're going to play 16 and 17 before skipping to 18, or before getting to 18. So follow the path. And this looks like it's going to be quite a bit of marsh here. And if we come back up here, if we look to our right, that is the basket for hole 17, but we are going to take a left and end up at the tee for 16. Hole 16 is a 268-foot par 3 downhill, pretty straightforward. You can see the basket from the tee. The road is OB long, which again, with it being downhill, it is possible to get there. So again, a nice little left to right fade shot, and that should put you right there. All right, so beyond the basket of 16, you have a solid 40 feet till you get to the road. So maybe even 50. So you got a long way to go past the basket. So you don't really even have to worry about the OB long here. We ended up with a 4 here after a missed 25-foot putt for 3. So to get from the basket of 16 to the hole of 17, we have these signs. So we go to the right. And if we follow the right edge of the wood line around, we have another sign for 17 here. And a couple more signs for hole 17. Again, just following the tree line here. So we get to this little edge here. And if we go into this little cove, we have the tee pad for hole 17. So to get here, we can just follow the tree line, keeping the tree line to our right all the way around from the basket of 16 to the tee of 17. Hole 17 is a 254-foot par 3 uphill with a mando tree to keep us out of the rough to the right. This is uphill. The basket is probably about 10 feet above where we are, so it does play a little longer than 254. So here we are at the drop zone right next to the Mando sign. This is only about 100 feet off the tee. I'm actually quite a bit further up yonder. I think I'm up by those 2 trees. So I think I have a good shot at 3 and maybe even outside shot if I can make a miracle putt for 2. So we will take our 3-foot drop in for 3 on hole 17 and get our disc out of the basket. And then if we look past the basket with our back to the tee, we can go up this little path here, and this will take us up to the tee of hole 18. This one is not too long. And a little further. And this will spit us out in this little opening. And if we just keep going straight ahead, we end up at the tee pad for hole 18. Hole 18 is a 302-foot par 3 downhill, dogleg right. The tee sign says there is a river in front of the basket. I'll give you a little picture up there of exactly where it is. My guess is that it is probably dry right now. Again, I'm playing in mid-September. It does have an elevated basket, and it is downhill to the basket. And inconveniently, the wind has just picked up in the last couple minutes. So this should be an interesting last hole of the day. All right, so after going into and out of the trees, I am here in two. A little closer look at the brook. You can see a couple bridges there. It's not very deep and there is no water. Again, we have a better shot of the elevated basket from here. My guess is the basket here is probably a good 8 to 10 feet off the ground. There are steps on the right side of the basket. Here we are at the stairs by the 18 basket. So there's the 18 basket. There are the stairs, and if we turn to our right, we can go down this path here, hopefully to get back where we came from. And if we follow this out here and continue on, we can see a "thanks for tossing at Moody" sign. So we will stop and take a look here, see what they have to say. Thanks to everybody for keeping up this course. Again, this was built in 2022, and they are upgrading it actively, as in they've been working on the course today to make things better. New baskets went in yesterday. So be interesting to come back here in a little while and see how it is from here. And there is the road. And from there, we can get back to where we parked.
From the end of the video, if you continue on a straight path across the field, you'll end up back at the start of the course. As I mentioned at various points in the playthrough, there were active upgrades and improvements taking place. As this is a new course, having initially opened in November of 2022, there are likely going to be improvements going on for a while. There are restrictions in place on what parts of the park could be used, so the changes are more likely to be on the scale of small improvements rather than significant layout changes at this point. The thumbnail hole for this course is hole 6, taken from near the drop zone at the base of the hill. This has a semi-island green with a natural barrier behind the hole and requires a gentle touch to get near the basket without rolling back down the hill. My favorite hole on the course is hole 9. It has a dramatic tee shot that, though it requires precision, it's not unreasonable, and even if your tee shot ends up at the bottom of the ravine, scrambling for par is realistic. With what I was being done to the green on the day I was playing, it's probably already improved from when I played. My least favorite hole was hole 8. Though I didn't really feel this way as I was standing on the tee, the more I thought about how a tree kick in any direction could result in a disc being lost in the swamp, as I thought I did on my second shot, the less I liked the hole. As it turned out, my second shot did end up inbounds, but I did go into the OB area to look for it, and even with as dry of a summer as it had been, if there had been much more water at all, I wouldn't have bothered looking for the disc. Because it is so far downhill that the green is potentially drivable even with my noodle arm, it's very tempting to go for, but the path is extremely narrow to get to the green. There are a couple of suggestions that I have that may help this. Option 1 would be to remove some of the trees just off the tee box to the left to widen the drive and reduce the risk of a bad early tree kick. If this was done, there would also be the potential of moving the tee back to lengthen the hole a bit and keep it a par 4. Alternatively, the tee could be moved forward past the large clump of trees and turn it into a 250-ish foot par 3. Both of these options would be a significant reduction in the danger of discs. The don't throw sign to the blind green is a very good idea and should remain regardless of what happens to the rest of the hole. The first and last holes are critical for introducing the course and leaving the last impression at the end of the round. Hole 1 is a good warm-up hole, being a short par 3 at 224 feet, and though there are trees in the way, an accurate tee shot will get you a birdie putt, and even if you get a bad kick off a tree, par is still in play. Though many of the holes, such as 2, 9, 11, and 12, may be more visually daunting with significant valleys that you have to go over, they play similarly to hole 1 if you can get it out of your head that you have to go over a 40-foot drop to get to the basket. Hole 18 is a good wrap-up to the hole 13 to 18 stretch that are more about keeping the disc in the fairway than avoiding the trees on the first part of the course. Being downhill, hole 18 also leaves the psychological benefit of having a longer drive than you would on flat ground, meaning that what would be an average drive ends up being a longer than average drive, which always feels good to end the round. This hole does make me want to come back and play the course again. Navigating between holes was among the easiest of any course I've played thus far, with signs that were well placed and easy to identify. This course was like driving on the Massachusetts Turnpike west of Worcester. If you follow the signs, you'll end up where you want to go, and just about the time you begin to wonder if you made a wrong turn, you'll see a sign that tells you're going the right way, even if it has been an abnormally long time since you have seen any markings or intersections. The trek from hole 8 to 9 is much like the drive between exits 10 and 41 on the Mass Turnpike, with a long ways between them, with nothing in the middle, with a few other long walks between holes scattered throughout the journey as well. There are a few places that I was concerned about losing discs. Most notably was a swamp to the left and long of hole 7 and surrounding hole 8. A single bad tree kick or rollaway could result in a disc that is gone forever into the swamp, and there are many opportunities to get bad tree kicks and rollaways. This concern definitely affected me on both holes. If it is wet, I could also potentially see issues in the gully on hole 2 or the second gully on hole 11, but with the conditions as they were, this didn't affect my tee shot on either hole. With the dense brush off the fairway on both sides of holes 13 and 18, this is also a concern, but the worst case is that I ended up playing slightly more conservatively so that an errant tee shot wouldn't go too far into the brush. This is a section where a pink or orange disc off the tee is a good idea to make them easier to find if you do end up in some thick brush. The majority of the tee pads were gravel, and though they were well marked, there are a couple of holes where having a more solid tee pad would be helpful. That said, this course is new enough that having semi-permanent rather than fully permanent tee pads makes sense, as it does allow for some course modification without the expense of rebuilding a permanent tee. This also justifies the use of the laminated paper maps for the tee signs, which are of higher quality than some of the other laminated paper maps that I have seen. More permanent signs would be nice, but what is currently there is effective and provides all of the information that you would hope for aside from tee to basket elevation change. The baskets were literally brand new dynamic disc baskets, and with them being less than 36 hours since they were installed until I played, they were all in perfect condition. There are a couple of places where the old baskets were still being cleaned up, and I can confirm that the new baskets were a significant upgrade for visibility as well as for their consistency. The white banding and basket color makes them easy to identify from a long distance. My overall course rating for Moody Park Disc Golf Course in Claremont, New Hampshire is that I would be willing to drive 2 hours out of my way to play this course for the first time and 1¼ hours to play it again. The other nearby course options are that there is a pay-to-play 9-hole beginner disc golf course about a 5-minute drive away that I have not played at Monarch Farms that requires scheduling before playing. This was designed by the same designer as the Moody Park course. There's also an 18-hole course in Chester, Vermont that I have not yet played, as well as a 9-hole course in Charlestown, New Hampshire that I have not played either that are a bit farther away. The closest course to Moody Park that I have played is one of my favorite courses at Pinnacle Disc Golf Course in Newport, New Hampshire, which is about a 20-minute drive due east. You can see a link to my walkthrough of Pinnacle in the description. I will play Moody Park again, likely in the spring or early summer, to see how different the course is when it has been wet, and to see the progression of the course as it matures. This is a course that is likely to end up on a semi-regular rotation of the courses that I play for fun when not filming. Special thanks to my son Alex for getting some great shots on course, not just here, but at Pinnacle as well. He's got a good knack for following the flight of the disc. Like, share, subscribe, and be like the morning after you stayed in a hotel and check out my other video linked here.